This one device just refreshed how I approach sound design, and it's been hiding in Max for Live this whole time. Meet Device Randomiser, the tool that turns predictability into surprise at the push of a button. Tired of your tracks sounding too safe? This thing injects controlled chaos into any parameter, creating those magical happy accents that make your music stand out. If you're a Live Suite owner and you're not using this yet, you're missing out on some serious creative fuel. Today, I'm showing you exactly why Device Randomiser just became a go-to secret weapon for creating unique sounds. Trust me, after this tutorial, you'll be happy you heard about it. Without further ado, let's dive in and take a look at the Device Randomiser. So, a quick walkthrough. I've made this little sketch of an electro beat. Let's have a listen to what we're working with, and then I'll walk you through track by track, and we'll get stuck into learning all about Device Randomiser. Nice. So what we've got here is starting on the left with a drum rack, an 808 core kit, and a drum rack pattern. That's simply just for context. We're not going to be doing anything with Device Randomizer on that track. That's just our glue, our drums, our glue drums. And then right next door, we've got another drum rack. It's the service module kit. So if you like any of the sounds you hear today, you'll find them all in Ableton Live's browser. They're bundled with the suite. So get stuck in if you like the sounds. So we've got another drum rack here. We can think of this like a percussion kit. We will be using the Device Randomizer to make that a bit more interesting. Then we've got a bass instrument and a bass pattern. And on there, we've got another Ableton Live preset called Bass Valley. And then finally to the right, we've got some chords, and we're using another Ableton instrument called the Starry Notes. And with that instrument, we will be again using the Device Randomizer to make it a little bit more interesting. So let's do a quick little, well, point one thing out here. All of the instruments I've chosen, they're all presets that come loaded with already macros. So they already have some parts of each preset mapped to macros. That's really advantageous here because once you see how the Device Randomizer works, I've deliberately chosen devices so that it's a little bit quicker for us to get the device working and going through its paces rather than, doing it from scratch. But let's just say that we quickly add a new MIDI track here and look at a couple of examples. If we go and search for a new instrument, let's say this one that's highlighted here, and I drag and drop that onto this MIDI track, if it's already mapped with the macros, that's great because Device Randomizer will instantly randomize those macros. And you might ask, well, what is the difference from the feature that we've sort of been working with? I think it kind of came either late 11 or early in Ableton Live 12. The fact that once we've got these macros here, we can randomize those macros directly on the device up here, up on the device bar. And I love doing that, actually. I use that an awful lot. And then I'll also do not only that, but I'll also do that with normal, my own sounds, right, that start from scratch. So if I pop an analog here, and then I straight away group it into an instrument rack, open up the macros and start mapping, my favorite parameters to some of the macros here, then I can do exactly what you just saw, but customize it to my own taste and what I want to happen with this particular instrument. And now I can start doing the same thing. So I love that feature already, but now we'll see why Device Randomizer is interesting, because it's a little bit different to that. Kind of does something similar, but it does it in a different way, a unique way. So let's have a look at how it works. And keep that in mind, ladies and gents. And one thing we're going to do straight away to sort of show you also good practice when you're doing what I was just doing and what we're going to be doing in a moment with the Device Randomizer, what I would really suggest doing is when I loaded all of these instruments here that are Ableton presets, I've basically loaded them with all the macros in the factory settings, right? I haven't changed anything to do with these macros yet at all. So a really good thing to do, a best practice, is to go to the left-hand side of the instrument, go down to the show and hide tabs. Let's click the camera icon, and we're going to open up the snapshots or the macro variations. Let's click new. and we're going to label that as well. So we're going to call that the original. And now what we've done, if you're using those kind of workflows, is we've preserved the factory settings. So what I love about that, it's very much the same as Electron machines. We can now mangle these macros as much as we like, knowing that we just have to toggle that to go back to where we were. So setting up snapshots, one that's the original, is a really great practice so that you know you can get back to your starting point and you can make as many of these as you like and go through different variations. So I think that's a really great move, especially with what we're about to do next. So then the device randomizer itself, let's switch it on. Let's have a little bit of a look at the interface. The first thing I'm going to look at is along the top here, we've got this auto, trigger, and edit. Auto simply means that if randomize is on and we map it to a device, the randomization is automatically going to be happening as long as those things are all switched on. If we stop the mapping or disable the mapping, then that is not going to happen. Or if we toggle the randomize on and off, we're going to stop that. But otherwise, if that's switched on and it's mapped to something, it's going to be automatically randomizing everything. Why I'm banging on about that a little bit is because this second page here is really interesting. I think especially for live performing or some sort of like perhaps you're recording and you're looking for little instances of switching it on and off and making, grabbing recordings of that for new ideas, loops, samples, inspiration. You can map this trigger either to a key on your keyboard, Command K or Command M. And that means that this is perfect for, like if I click the randomize button here, map it to a key on my keyboard, I can now toggle this randomization just on and off. So a burst of it, and then it's off again. I love that. So you've got two pages and they are kind of separate from each other. So if you're on the auto page, these settings over here, as you can see, are tied to auto. And when we go over to the trigger, it's a little bit different, right? It's kind of got its own settings as well. So just keep that in mind, because I did catch myself one time playing around with these, but I was on the trigger page and I thought I was playing around with the auto page. So what are these settings over here? Well, we've got random frequency and random frequency modulation. At the top here, it's simply the randomization values of whatever it's mapped to. And we've got macros that kind of control that mathematical kind of word interpolation. Just sort of think about it, that the smoothness or glitchiness of how those randomization values are being applied to what they're mapped to. And you can see we can control those values with frequency and hertz, or we can click here and note sync it, which is a really nice touch as well. So right now smoothing's maxed on and the curve is at the minimum. So it's a very kind of like smooth result. But if you want more curve and less smoothing, it's going to be more glitchy and jumpy. Then down the bottom, we've got essentially a modulation oscillator, an FM modulation oscillator that is applied to the randomization values, and again can be frequency or note sync. And the depth macro is pretty wild, to be honest. That's like a real chaos inducing macro when you've got frequency modulation applied. If you add some of that, that's probably where you're going to get some pretty wild results. And then the trigger page, like I said, you've got the same kind of macros and things. Once you're over here and it's toggled on, then you can see that, you're going to be adjusting some of those things. Okay, so let's get back over to auto, bring that back around, and let me just reset that. Okay, there we go. So let's get that back over to frequency, get our value in here, set that back up to the default, something like that, maybe just a little bit around. There we go. Lovely. So now, how does it work? Well, we're going to turn on randomize and we're going to map it. Good news is we've already got original factory there, so we can always go back to that at any point we like. And we can now click map. And so it tells us we're ready to click on something. And now the beauty of this is that because those macros already exist, we just click on the title bar of the device and that's it. Off it goes. Amazing. So all of the macros are now being randomized by these settings over here. And if we look at this edit page, you'll see that now listed are the 8 macros that are being modulated. And then we go all the way down to 16 here. And so if you wanted, you could open up all the other macros that are available and then map those, and you can turn this into, 16 macros worth of modulation. We're going to keep it to the factory. And then as you can also see where it's labeled on, if there's anything here that you want to eliminate from the modulation, then it's as simple as, let's come here, toggle off randomize, go to edit, and let's say that we don't want the filter frequency as part of the modulation. We turn it off. And now if we go back and we have the randomization, it's now independent of that. Love that. So really, really great. So let's also say that because it's the device that it randomizes, let's go back to the original here, by the way, because this is working on the actual devices, with our creative caps on here, we could grab an echo, put that on the track here, and now we could put randomize on, map it to the echo, and you can see it's taken over parameters on the echo. And if we open up the edit page, again, you can see what's switched on, which parameters it's, working, it is modulating, and then what is switched off. And we go all the way here to 31 parameters. And I think it seems that you've got a limit of like 16 possible. So once you start adding more, it will turn off some of the 16 that's already mapped by default. So that's something to keep in mind here. But there's nothing stopping you from adding more device randomizers and making them do, like this one's now doing the echo. So if we added another one and we made that one be mapped to the instrument, now we've got 2 sets of that, and that's pretty wild, to be honest. So I think this is fantastic personally, and there's a lot of creativity that can come from this. So let's take a pause there. Let's get rid of the echo. We're going to get rid of one device randomizer. We're going to come right back. We're going to reset our factory settings here. We're going to turn on play so we can hear this drum kit. Let's take out the other stuff and let's make this get to work now. So let's map it up here. So frequency, if we slow it down a bit, movement is a lot slower if we go the other way. Just like an LFO, speeding it up till it's super chaotic, right? So let's slow it down a bit. If we bring the smoothing around, jumps there a little bit quicker. And then if we go to the frequency modulation part, as I said, if we bring up this depth knob, so if you're interested in doing mud pies, creating your own loops, creating your own one-shots and samples and stuff, this is just a fantastic device for inspiring lots of energy in that direction. So let's say if we're going to do that, this isn't about printing interesting MIDI results. It would be going straight to audio. So we could set up an audio track, make it, label it, let's say rec in, and literally turn it into, for the moment, listening to this drum rack that we're working with the device randomizer, switch it to in. We don't need to listen to it, so we can turn that off, arm it, turn it to in, hit record, and now we can start capturing those results in real time. And for sure, there's going to be lots of inspiring, like, as I said, one-shots that we could chop out or loops that we could create here, and we can just leave this recording while we go and play around in real time with those settings that we were just looking at. Absolutely awesome stuff, right? So I'm going to hit stop there, but you get the idea, right? And the great thing about making a rec in track is you could then just label this clip and just say, like, what are we working with? The service, let's say, drums, just to make that nice and easy so we know what that is. And then literally we could change audio from to the bass track or to the chord track and carry on recording into there. So it's a nice way to maybe capture some of those ideas. So let's drag that out of the way and carry on. Let's go next to the bass instrument. So I'm going to leave the service module kit in its world of randomization. At any point, if I like, I can toggle this off, and that leaves the instance. So quickly to point out as well, if I toggle this from trigger, I'm just changing this. So watching the macros, right? And if anything exciting happens from that, I can go straight away and create a new snapshot. And now I've just captured that state of the macros. It's just, as I said, what's not to like, to be honest. Now, if I turn the trigger off and I go back to auto and hit randomize, we're back to automatically randomizing them all. And if at any point, again, something happens and you turn the randomize off, you're going to again make a new snapshot. We can toggle back to the factory settings. It's just a great workflow. All right, so let's say we're going to leave this on nice and generative. We're going to go to the bass. And now we know this works. We're going to auto, turn on the randomize. We're going to map it to this. So let's do that. So we're mapping it to all the macros, but straight away with this one, looking at my bass instrument, I'm going to make a few changes. So I'm going to eliminate the filter cutoff from the mapping. So I'm going to turn that off. So it's not going to modulate. I'm going to have my own control of that. I'm going to do the same with resonance. So I'm going to have control over that. Maybe filter envelope. Also, I'm going to turn off. So I've got control over that. Glide also maybe off. And then we leave erosion, FX amounts, subvolume maybe off as well. And the glide, did I take that out? No, I'm going to take that out. And so we can add any of those back in, but I've just simplified it a little bit, right? So now it's still randomizing, but a lot less of the settings, the automatic settings. So I'm just adjusting the macros that I eliminated. There we go. Nice. So as you can see, you can eliminate, take a few things out, you can add more. So you can treat it the other way around. Again, we're going to have like lots of free macros here that we could map other things to on the instrument. Absolutely, again, really love it. I didn't safeguard the original snapshot, right? Which I still think is a good first move. So I didn't in this case. But like I said, if you want to safeguard those factory presets when you first add the instrument there, just put it in your mental note, or make a note of it just to make an original snapshot. And then you can always jump back to that at any point in time, right? So let's carry on with the chord device, and let's just put this back a little bit to how we can see it working. And let's go to the fourth instrument here, this Starry Notes, which is playing some chords. And similarly, following what we've been doing, this actually has the Starry Notes already, 3 snapshots, which is great. So there's 3 separate instances of macros already. Now we know what we're doing here. We're going to turn on randomize. We're going to map it to the top up here, and we know what that's going to do. Hang on a sec. And there we go. As you can see, it's now kind of, moving all those macros around nicely. So if you have these snapshots already, I can toggle between those as well in the background of all these macros. And it's going to start from that snapshot to the randomized positions. So there's quite a lot of depth here. Excellent stuff. So literally, with I see some great applications for this. I think I've walked you through all the different sort of things that came to my mind, from making your own instrument racks and mapping your own custom macros, and then adding the device randomizer to that, using more than one device randomizer to control different devices, effects, groups of effects. Like literally, sky's a bit the limit with this pretty awesome device. As I said, don't sleep on it, get stuck in, try it all out, have a lot of fun with it, and pretty much that's going to be a wrap for today. As always, it helps the channel an awful lot. It's the one favor that I ask you all very much, to push those buttons, the ones I'm talking about. And a quick one to mention as well is, if you want to take this kind of concept further and develop your own techniques specific to your music and your own personal sound, I work one-to-one, one-on-one with DJ artists and producers on exactly this kind of stuff. There's a link down in the description to book a free call, and we can figure out if we're a good fit and map out what your signature sound could look like. There's no pressure, just a conversation. And on that note, take care everybody, keep on creating, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video or live stream. Come join me on a live stream one Sunday. Take care everybody, keep on creating. Heath Home over and out. Ciao everybody.